Back in the 50s and 60s was a pretty insular community. There were less contact points than there are today. And I do recall pretty much being in Chinatown and on Beacon Hill most of my early life. We didn't stray very far. We didn't go over on the east side. We didn't go to North Seattle. We didn't go very far south. It was a community where everyone knew one another. And when my parents were working and we kids were at home, we took care of one another. My sister, from a very early age, I think about 10 or so, cooked for us while my mother went off and worked. And so she was only 2 years older than me, but she took on the surrogate mother role. And many of the kids in the neighborhood came, and we played in the neighborhood together. These were African American kids, other Chinese American kids, and Japanese American kids. So we all played together, and it was a pretty safe feeling that you knew everybody and they all looked out for one another.
And at Beacon Hill Elementary, there was also what kinds of...
Well, the class was... the school itself is the neighborhood is a working class, still is a very working class neighborhood, immigrant neighborhood, still is today. The classmates, again, many of them their parents worked in the restaurants and sewing factories, and so we knew them. We knew the Asian families better than we did the other families, although we knew them as well. But in particular, Chinese families we knew quite well because we had many similarities in terms of language, food, and traditions. The school itself was, I think, a place that, in terms of the racial awareness, the level of awareness was very low. I recall as a child, many years later, that there wasn't a whole lot of tolerance for people speaking a different language. So as a young child, I remember one fairly traumatic incident now in hindsight, which involved my mother, who took us to school, dropping us off inside the school. And I remember it was either a principal or a teacher or somebody in a position of authority telling me to tell my mother not to speak English while she was not to speak Chinese while she was inside the school. And so my mother asked me what was going on, and I just remember not telling her exactly what was going on. And so from that day on, I made sure that she dropped me off outside the school, and that if she came to get me, that I would rush out the door so that she wouldn't come inside the school, because it was very embarrassing. But it wasn't until many years later that I remember that, and I'm sure the school was trying to make sure that these children would learn English and become assimilated, but I don't think they realized the impact of what they were doing to a child in terms of their self-esteem and so forth.